Welcome to the book of Haggai. Now, we turn a bit of a corner when we open to this book. You see, the final three prophets in the book of the 12, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, are all post-exilic prophets, meaning that they ministered after Judah returned from the exile in Babylon. Now, how do they get back? Well, remember the book of Daniel and how he saw a sequence of Gentile world powers, one after the other. And he lived through the first transition between those powers from Babylon to Persia. And then Isaiah, 150 years before that, he predicts Babylon's conqueror by name, a guy we call Cyrus the Great. Now, Cyrus, he had a novel international policy. Instead of being a meanie face like Assyria and Babylon before him, he thought that, if I'm a little bit nice to the people I rule over, throw them a bone here and there, maybe they won't be such a pain in my neck. So, in 538, Cyrus issues what we call the Edict of Cyrus, permitting all foreign expatriates living inside of Babylon who were exiled away from their homelands to return home to their native countries. This edict was recorded probably in many places, but we know at least on something that archaeologists call the Cyrus cylinder, which they dug up in the Middle East. It's incredible. Come and take a look at the Cyrus cylinder. Isn't that something? Look at that. So all of this is Akkadian cuneiform script. This is their language, and these are all lines. And I guess the words would wrap all the way around this cylinder. And here's a kind of a more clear image, and you can get a feel for what their language was like. They kind of, all of their letters are formed using a single symbol, which is this, this kind of arrow, which is kind of a triangle with a line coming out of it. And if you take all of this and you put it all onto a single page, it looks a little something like this. Isn't this incredible? Anyways, this edict, the Edict of Cyrus, is recorded for us in 2 Chronicles 36 and Ezra chapter 1, or at least the relevant portions for the people of God. Well, Haggai, he played a significant role in the book of Ezra. And our buddy Haggai, he is about one thing and one thing only: rebuilding the temple. Now, it was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians in 586, and Haggai was called of God to exhort the people, the remnant who had returned to the land, to rebuild the temple and to resume their worship of God according to the Mosaic law. Well, the kind of joint books of Ezra and Nehemiah together in one book, they chronicle 3 returns from exile, 1, 2, 3, and 3 building projects coinciding with each of these 3 returns. Let me show you in a little chart I developed for my teaching on Ezra and Nehemiah. You see, in Ezra 1 to 6, we have return number 1 in the year 538 under Zerubbabel, and their mission was to rebuild the temple. Ezra 7 to 10 in 458 was Ezra's return, and they rebuilt the Torah community. And then finally, we all know our buddy Nehemiah, the cupbearer, in 444 came back to Judah and rebuilt the walls. Well, if Haggai is all about rebuilding the temple, well then Ezra 1 to 6 is probably going to be pretty important for this prophet. Fortunately for you, I've tabulated and summarized all of the main events in these chapters in yet another chart, an overview of Ezra 1 to 6, which let's run through quickly together just to orient ourselves to the historical background for our prophet Haggai. So in Ezra chapter 1, The Edict of Cyrus is recorded, and the Jews return to the land under Sheshbazzar. And then in Ezra 2, it's just a list of everyone who came back, almost 50,000 people. In Ezra 3, under the leadership of Joshua and Zerubbabel, they begin to rebuild right away. And in 538, they rebuild the altar, and they begin to sacrifice, celebrating the Feast of Booths. A couple years later, 536, they complete the foundation of the temple. Things are rolling. It's going really great. But then Ezra 4 shows up. And the people of the land who are living there already, they say, hey, let us help you build the temple. And maybe this is genuine. Maybe this was a malicious request or offer. Scholars debate about that. But regardless, Zerubbabel said, no, you can't help us. You are enemies of God. And therefore, these people of the land begin to resist the building efforts of the temple. And this resistance results in a 16-year delay. Zoom in a little bit here. From 536 all the way to 520, all work on the temple stops. Oh, this is terrible. But then in Ezra 5, Haggai and Zechariah, kind of like a dual team of two prophets, they call the people to resume construction on the temple. And in the year 520, they do. They get back to work. And in Ezra chapter 6, the temple is completed. 5 years after that, in the year 515, and they celebrate the Passover. Let's just jump quickly to Ezra chapter 5, just so we can see the role of Haggai and Zechariah in this construction project. Well, in the last verse of chapter 4 of Ezra, we read that all the work on the house of God stopped, but then Haggai and Zechariah appear 16 years later, prophesied to the Jews, and then Zerubbabel and Joshua, the leaders there in the community, begin again to rebuild the house of God. Well, all of this action, all of it in this book takes place in 1 year, the year 520, after that 16-year delay, a critical year to remember for the book of Haggai. But what's more, Haggai only delivers 4 oracles in this short 2-chapter book, and these 4 oracles are delivered on 3 separate days over the span of about 4 months. Now, these 4 oracles provide the structure of this book, 4 different sections, and let's take a look at those chronological markers in the book of Haggai itself. Finally, let's open to the book of Haggai. So oracle number 1 is in the 2nd year of Darius, in the 6th month on the 1st day. Okay, it's all of chapter 1. Now, oracle number 2 is on the 7th month, on the 21st day. Oracle number 3 on the 24th day of the 9th month, and oracle number 4 is on the same day, the 24th day of the 9th month. Now, unless you can keep a calendar just neatly tucked away in your mind and you can visualize all of this, I think it's helpful to see it visually. And so I have here the oracles of Haggai placed for you on a calendar. So here we are, January, February, March, April, down to the month of August, which we believe is when Haggai issued his first oracle. And in Haggai 1:1, it says that this was in the 6th month on the 1st day of the month. And this is most likely the Babylonian calendar. And when we translate that into our Gregorian calendars, that is August 29th. And if you trust an online date calculator, which I found, supposedly this landed on a Tuesday, for whatever that's worth. Well, 23 days later, after Haggai issued his first oracle, we have the people's response to that oracle, September 21st, very interesting. And then 27 days later, about a month later, October 17th, got oracle number 2, and then oracles 3 and 4 occur 63 days after that on December 18th. So there you go. This is the coverage of the book of Haggai, just this brief window, this brief period of time. And that was a lot of background information for you, but I do think it's important for us to grasp the big picture of Israel's history, where we're at. They've returned from exile. They began to rebuild their lives and the temple, but there was a delay. And now, when we turn to the book of Haggai, we focus on the most important concern for him, which is rebuilding the temple. And all this action takes place over 4 months in the year 520. Well, we're going to see how Haggai goes about his task of calling the people to rebuild next.